it is honestly quite interesting to see how the fans have responded to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, of course, when the show began, a lot of people anticipated that it was going to connect to MCU events, and that's exactly what the show did. But people did not like that. They wanted more individual growth for all the characters that they were watching. So the show slowly started to get away from that while having that be a background component and making their own storylines the actual forefront of the show, which, as it turns out, people also didn't like that as well. Now the star of the show, Clark Gregg, opens up about his mixed feelings from departing the MCU and why it also worked, while at the same time it also made people kind of bummed that they weren't really playing in the same playground. So when it comes to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., obviously we know now that the first season had to more or less pad out the first 13 plus episodes to wait for the twist. And the twist was the twist that S.H.I.E.L.D. was dismantled and it was all Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. would be no more. So yeah, once they got there, it was like, okay, well, where do we go on from here? And then during the next 2 seasons, they would kind of work around some of the other events. You know, there was a connection to Thor: The Dark World with the elves and all that, and it all really worked out. But at the same time, they started to develop their own side plots that were becoming pretty important to pad out the kind of a periphery of the MCU films. And of course, then eventually they would just end up not even acknowledging the films anymore and doing their own thing, like traveling to the future or traveling to a parallel universe in a simulation that was overrun by Hydra and Madam Hydra, and it was like all over the place, and it got really interesting. And then they of course even got to use Ghost Rider, so that was pretty incredible. And Variety got to sit down with Clark Gregg and ask him about this. Now, since he plays Phil Coulson, he was there from the beginning. He started in the early, MCU. He was literally right there. So they wanted to know, how did he feel about this? And what was it that kind of made them get away from it? And he says that it was kind of a few things, that they had a lot that they had to kind of acknowledge. And in that first season, they had Kobe Smulders and Sam Jackson. And of course, Sif appears as well. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is clearly connecting to everything. But then he says in season 4, this is where things just took a completely different direction. Ghost Rider, LMDs, the framework, the Inhumans. And they started to get away from what the MCU was doing because they felt like they could really do their own thing. And he talks about the fact that the writers of the show and the showrunners would have to literally look at everything Kevin Feige was doing and then talk to Jeff Loeb, and they would have to kind of figure out what could they use and what approach could they take the next season that Kevin Feige might not have in plans. And that's why they ultimately decided that they were just going to start doing their own thing and not trying to line up so much with the events of the MCU unless it was something big, because it was just holding the show back. And I think if you're still with the show, you 100% agree that this is fact, because the show got way better the moment they left the MCU proper. So as he says, he's kind of bummed that they couldn't do that, but it also gave them more opportunity to be able to do what they've done. So ultimately, he likes the direction of the show, which I think pretty much everybody agrees with that.